Hey guys, Gage here with Sherpa. Today we're going to be going over the installation process for the QDHD roof rack for the Jeep Gladiator JT. Before we get started, we're going to lay out some of the hardware we need for the first step of this installation process. You will need the support brackets. These are the front ones, and then these are the rear ones. Make sure you have those. Over here we're going to have two different jigs, this guy and then this guy. And then we will have 8 cage brace inserts. There's going to be 4 short and 4 long ones. Some tools you'll need are a drill, a 5/8 drill bit, a 1/4 inch drill bit, a T55 Torx bit, 9/16 wrench and socket, a torque wrench, and then we recommend some safety glasses and a face covering for when you're drilling the fiberglass. We're going to take the freedom panels and the back roof off of the Jeep. Now that the roof's off the Jeep, we're going to start by installing the front and the rear mounts. The hardware we're going to need are 16 3/8 washers, 8 3/8 nylock nuts. We will need 4 3/8 by 3 inch bolts, 4 3/8 by 3.5 inch bolts, and then we're going to need these cage inserts. There's going to be 4 short and 4 long. The short ones will have an S, and the long ones will have an L engraved. We're going to start with the front mounts, so go ahead and grab your front driver's side mount, and then half of the shorter hardware, so 2 shorter inserts, 2 shorter bolts, 2 nuts, and then 4 washers. Grab our bracket, and there's going to be 2 holes that go through the frame of the vehicle, one in the front, one in the rear. So we're going to line the front hole up with the hole in the vehicle, same with the rear. Then we will take the shorter inserts and slide them through the hole, through the cage. Then we want to grab our 3-inch bolt with the washer. Alright, then take one more washer and nut and get that guy partially threaded on the bottom of both studs. Alright, now we're going to move on to the rear. So grab your rear driver's side bracket. We're going to do the same thing. Take half of the longer hardware, 2 longer inserts, 2 3.5 inch bolts, 2 nuts, and then 4 washers. Alright, same thing like we did on the front. There's going to be a hole here in the cage and then a hole in the rear. So line up the front hole with the front hole in the vehicle, and then the rear one the same way. And then we will install the longer cage inserts through the front and the rear. And then same thing, bolt and washer through those as well. Now grab another washer and nut, do the same thing, partially thread them on both the studs. We're going to torque these down to 17 foot-pounds on both the front and the rear. Once you're done with that, go ahead and repeat the same process on the opposite side of the vehicle. Alright, now that the front and rear mounts are fully installed on the Jeep, grab the rear and the front section of the roof and put them back on. Alright guys, now that the roof is fully installed back on the Jeep, we're going to start the drilling process. Collect your drill, your 5/8 drill bit, your 1/4 inch drill bit, your 2 different drill jigs, some safety glasses, and a face mask. We also recommend putting down a moving blanket or something inside to help collect the dust. Alright, we're going to take our little drill jig and insert it in the center hole on the front bracket until it's flush. And then we're going to use that center 1/4 inch hole as a pilot hole. Then we're going to drill all the way through the rack. Alright, so now that the front section's drilled, we're going to repeat that same process for the remaining 3 holes. Alright, now that we have all 4 pilot holes drilled, we're going to go ahead and take the roof back off of the Jeep. Now go ahead and grab the bigger of the 2 jigs. This is going to help us drill our 2 new pilot holes. We're going to go ahead and place this stud through the hole we just pre-drilled. One thing to make sure is that this arrow is always pointing towards the center of the Jeep. So we'll install that like so. Press it all the way down firm. And then we're going to hold it in place while we drill 2 new 1/4 inch pilot holes. And we're going to repeat that same process on the 3 remaining corners. And again, just make sure that arrow is pointing towards the center of the vehicle before you start drilling. Now that we have all of our 1/4 inch pilot holes drilled, go ahead and grab your 5/8 drill bit, and we're going to need to enlarge all of the holes we just drilled. Alright, next step after all the holes are drilled, we're going to be installing all of our sandwich plates. Go through the ones that you have and make sure they're correct. You should have 4 top sandwich plates and 4 bottom sandwich plates. The top ones need to have designators A, AA, and then you'll have 2 with a B. And on the bottom sandwich plates, you'll have the same, an A, an AA, and then you will have 2 with a B. Grab those, then grab these gaskets, grab your 5/16 countersink bolts, and then a 3/16 Allen key. All right, we're going to be starting on the front passenger side of the vehicle. So grab your A top bracket and your A bottom sandwich plate. And then one key note on these is this little arrow in the corner will always be pointing towards the center middle of the vehicle. So we will grab our gasket, place it underneath, and then set it through the holes like so. And then we're going to be grabbing our bottom sandwich plate, flipping it like this. That arrow is going to be pointing towards the center, and then we'll install it underneath the vehicle. You can go ahead and tighten these guys down and then back it off a turn. We want to have a little bit of play in this. We will come back and fully tighten these, but make sure they got a little bit of play for now. Now moving towards the back, we're going to grab our B top sandwich plate. Same thing, put the gasket on there, center it in the holes, and then again, arrows pointing towards the center of the vehicle. And we'll grab our bottom sandwich plate, the exact same thing, flip it, arrows towards the center, and then loosely install that. Front driver's side, we're doing the AA sandwich plate, again, arrow pointing towards the middle center of the vehicle, gasket, install like so, and then arrows pointing towards the center of the vehicle after it's flipped, install underneath. All right, now that we've got all of our sandwich plates installed, we're going to go ahead and put these back on the roof, so fully install the rear and the front. All right, now with the Jeep roof fully installed again, go ahead and grab this little alignment jig that we provide, and then we're going to feed that through the top sandwich plate until it feeds through the sandwich plates, and then it'll lock in place once that bottom pin is through one of the brackets on the bottom. So then if you look at the bottom and that pin's going through the bracket, hold it down, and then fully tighten it with your 3/16 Allen key. All right, now that that guy's fully tight, go ahead and pull that pin out and repeat the same process in the remaining mounting locations. We're going to start assembling the rack. We will need 2 of the provided 56-inch crossbars, 2 of these taller arch brackets, 2 of these smaller arch brackets, 4 of our pre-assembled QD knobs, and then we're going to need 16 T-nuts, 16 1/4-inch washers, and then 16 1/4-20 hex bolts. We're going to install 2 of the tall arch brackets on the first crossbar. What you'll need is 4 of these T-nuts. We're going to slide them in like so. Line up the holes on the arch bracket with those T-nuts. Grab the 1/4-20 bolt with washer, and then get that partially threaded. Repeat that same thing on the other side of the crossbar. Keep these guys loose right now, but then go ahead and grab the 2 smaller arch brackets and install those on the other crossbar the same way we just did. All right, we're going to get these roughly where they're supposed to be on the truck. So measure from the corner of the arch bracket to the end of the extrusion. We're going to just measure 6 inches on both sides, and then again we're going to leave these loose until we put them on the truck. Starting with the front, grab the crossbar with the 2 larger arch brackets on there, and then grab 2 of your quick disconnect knobs, and we're going to go put it on the truck. All right, there's going to be a couple male knobs on the top sandwich plates and then some female sections on the bottom of the arch brackets. So flip those guys over and try to get both sections keyed in. And once they're sitting good, grab your QD knob and then thread it underneath. These knobs have 2 different configurations. This is the longer configuration. This will be run when the roof is on the vehicle. And then if you press that in and drop it down. This is the shorter configuration for when the roof is not on the vehicle, but you still want to run the roof rack. Since we have the roof on the Jeep right now, we're going to be running it like this in the longer configuration. Now moving to the rear, we're going to do the same process we just did. Just make sure the crossbar has the 2 smaller arch brackets installed. Flip it over, and then line it up with the notches. And grab your knob and secure those guys in place. Okay, next, because these guys are still loose, we're gonna take a tape measure. We want it to be centered on the vehicle. So go ahead back and forth and measure to make sure you're even. With that centered, grab your 7/16 wrench and fully tighten all 4 locations on each arch bracket. Okay guys, next step, grab your 2 provided side plates, and then we're going to start with 8 of our 1/4 20 by 1-inch socket buttons with 8 washers as well, and then we have our 5/32 Allen key. If you're doing this install by yourself, we recommend just placing a rack on the front of the vehicle to stop any scratches from happening. All right, we're going to start by lining this rear slot up with the rear crossbar. Grab your socket button and washer and get that guy partially threaded. Then we're going to move up to the front, align these 2 smaller slots up with the crossbar installed, and then partially thread. Go ahead and throw another bolt in both of these crossbars. And then in the front is where we're going to do our alignment. Okay, we can fully tighten these down now. We just want to make sure the bolt is centered in that small slot. So roughly center it, and then you can fully tighten these guys. All right, now grab the last side plate, the remaining hardware. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. All right, next we're going to install our front fairing. So you will need another crossbar, the front fairing, and then some of provided hardware. Collect 6 of the T-nuts, 6 1/4-inch washers, and then 6 1/4 20 socket buttons, and these are the 1/2-inch long ones. Quick tip to getting this installed, line it up with the crossbar on the sides, making sure it's flush, and then kind of eyeball where the holes are on the fairing, and then drop some T-nuts in and try to align them with the holes on the fairing. All right, now set the fairing on top of the crossbar, and then align the holes with the T-nuts we just inserted, and then start partially threading the 1/2-inch bolts. Butt that fairing up so it's flush with the side of the crossbar, and then tighten down all the hardware. Okay, grab 4 1/4-inch washers and then 4 1/4 20 socket buttons, the 1-inch long ones, and we're going to install the fairing on the Jeep. If you're installing this alone again, we recommend throwing something down just to catch the backside so we're not scratching the Jeep. Okay, before we fully tighten this, I'm going to adjust this just a little bit so that we have a small gap between the fairing and the roof, and then fully tighten that for now. If you experience any wind noise or want to adjust this later, just move it up or down in the slot to see if that helps. All right guys, now we're going to put the rest of the crossbars onto the Jeep. There should be 4 left, and then grab the remaining hardware, the 1-inch long socket buttons with the washers. We recommend evenly spacing these throughout the rack. All right guys, this wraps up the install for the QDHD roof rack for the Jeep Gladiator JT. If you have any questions, hit us up at sherpaec.com or give us a call.